to us, and I don't have where to put it. I think I have one somewhere here. I have one. I got it. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Okay. Right. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. We're going to deviate a little bit from our schedule or our agenda Tim had written up for us. And I know Frankie, she helped me today with this and yesterday. We have a problem with feral cats in the city. And the other day I was watching News 9 and I saw Mrs. Anderson back there. She was on the TV.
Not me.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Lisa Anderson. Okay, I'll distinguish between both. Okay, Lisa Anderson back here. And Roberta Maricino, she's another animal advocate. And Frankie asked them to show up tonight, in which they are here. I've talked to some of the people in Weirton Steel, or Archer where I work, and we've had the same problem with cats. We had a person, a litter control officer come in to our facility. But I like what you had. I think it was called trap, neuter, release, TNR you said the other day, okay? And would you like to get up and discuss it today? This evening for us?
Can I ask Roberta?
Roberta?
That, please? No, me. Okay, Roberta got me into this.
You want to come up here to this microphone, please, Lisa? Well, you don't have to give us a lot, but you can give us some information.
That might be a little loud because I have a loud voice anyway. But
Okay.
okay, my name is Lisa Anderson, and my neighbor is Roberta Maricino. Like I said, this was Roberta's take on to begin with. Being neighbors just got involved, and what we would like to do is implement, and from what I understand, Weirton recently started this, a trap, neuter, release program. And what it is we would go out, set traps, catch the feral cats, take them to the vet to get spayed or neutered, and then release them back into the population, because if we get rid of the feral cats totally, then we get outrun by rodents.
Right.
So the ferals, but we want to stop them from reproducing.
Right.
That would get a hold on it.
Right.
So that's our main goal is to get something like that going. We presently have 11 cats that we have trapped in our area at the local grocery store, and we have gotten all of them fixed. And some of them, we just recently found out that unfortunately we believe they came from a home that a woman had passed away in, and they just opened the door and let them go.
Find a new home.
Right.
Okay.
So some of them are coming around to where they're adoptable, but a lot of them are not going to be that way.
Yeah.
So to get them, to catch them, to vet them, and release them back out fixed so they cannot reproduce anymore is our main goal.
Who does who traps? Do you and
Roberta, we're
Roberta?
working with one trap now. That's our main problem. We have one trap that's on loan to us. And yes, we set the trap out, we check it.
who loaned you that trap?
The Humane Society.
Humane Society. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure how we. I imagine they would probably do that with us, Tim. You think?
I think a relationship with them and kind of work with them might be effective. Sure.
Go ahead.
For personal reasons, we prefer not to. I think I speak for both of us on that. Yes. Yes.
How much is a trap?
I'm sorry. Past experience with them, I've had bad experience with the Humane Society. I have questions of my own regarding them.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to do that because the other day on news you did say that you kind of like.
Hounds Haven.
Yes.
Hounds Haven. We work closely with Robin at Hounds Haven.
Okay. I think my wife went to a walk one time. They had a fundraiser for the Hounds Haven. But how much do the traps cost? Do you know?
Between $30 and $80, I think. Probably around $50. I have not. I was supposed to go.
The average cost is about 50.
50, I'll buy a trap.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And then you take it to Hound Haven and they.
Oh no, sir. We do it all on our.
No. When you have that new.
Oh, No, we do that. Robin simply, we take them to a vet that Robin uses under her name to get her price.
Verizon.
We are in the process of getting a secondhand Lions, is what the name of it is. Nonprofit organization going of secondhand Lions, and then going from there on our own. But as of right now, Robin is being gracious enough to let us use her name and her prices, so we get her prices, and then we pay her back.
Okay.
Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
My question would be, you take them to the vet, are all the vets working with you?
No, sir.
And so do we need to find a vet that might be willing to discount the process or help us?
Yes.
It would be absolutely awesome if we could find a vet in this area to do it. Because as of right now, we have gone up to Canfield, which was a bad experience, and we have gone down to St. Clairsville with New Horizons, which was an excellent experience. And they work through Robin, and I think Robin has another vet she uses, but they're all out of area. To find a local vet that would be willing to work with us would be awesome. Right now, we're getting them through Robin. Her price is $30 per animal, plus that's including the fixing of them and the rabies shot, one rabies shot.
And right now, you're taking care of that?
She's been taking care of it out of pocket.
11 cats.
Yeah, that's why we went
Well,
on
we
the
need to
news.
do a fundraiser. is what we
Right.
need to do.
Exactly.
That's exactly why we went, the news story was my idea, and I'm the one who reached out to them, because she's been putting it all out of pocket.
I'm going to put it out on the line, and I'm sure he won't mind, but, Spot Bar's had quite a problem down there, and I think if you got a hold of Joey Diallo, that he will be willing to sit with you and organize some kind of a fundraiser, and I would definitely love to help in any way that I could. But you need to get your organization, I think, together.
That's right, she was in the process of that, and I just stopped on the way here prior to coming to left JoJo my number, to get in touch with him, call me. Yes, I spoke with Terry. Yeah, so.
Okay, then once you release them, you just release them anywhere or back
As
in?
of-
So back to where they came from.
Back to where they came from, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
back to where they were found.
Okay.
With housing and food and someone to take care of them.
Okay.
I mean, yes, if there's something, like I said, the ones that are on Spot Bar and the others that we've come across, like I said, the only reason how come some of these are even remotely associating with us is because they once came from a home, which we, like I said, just recently found out, but that makes a lot of sense, because they're older, some of them are older, and feral cats usually don't come anywhere near a human for months and months and
Right.
months, and some of these, and within weeks, have come up to her. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, there's, the ones from here on out, like, there's like 4 or 5 maybe of the ones that we have now that are adoptable that we can find, that we'd like to find homes for, but from here on out, they will go right back out.
Okay, and I know there's various neighborhoods, is it your neighborhood that has, not your neighborhood, but
Yes,
your area?
yeah, Union Avenue, parts of Pleasant Heights and Laybell are very bad. We have to do something, because some residents are taking it into their own hands. They're setting traps that are designed to kill. And so we have to give them something where they're gonna have no choice but to try to do it themselves.
Right.
And it is a big problem. Once the weather breaks, I could take you to neighborhoods where you can smell the cat in your room.
Right,
It's
and
horrible.
well, that's gonna be, I mean, if you get rid of, well, I don't know about Pleasant Hill, because I haven't been up on Laybell Hill much and up that way. But like on the river down here, you get rid of the cats, you're gonna have a problem with the rats.
Right, exactly.
Like I said, in those areas now, and in that case, I mean, of course, the ideal situation would be to find one of these empty buildings and make some type of shelter for them all to be in, or, even if they can come and go, but, that's way,
And I think
that's asking a lot, but.
I think all our wards have similar problem to this. I mean, mine's not as bad as what
Absolutely.
Mr. Johnson has, or
I
what
mean-
Angie might have, or Miss Kirkdale, I'm sorry.
We came across, what's the name of the dance studio?
Main Street.
Main Street Dance Studio in Wintersville. And behind there is a broken down like a bread truck or some type or whatever, and somebody has purchased the bales of hay, and they surrounded the bottom of the truck, and they've got openings for the cats, and they feed them, but they're not, a single one of them is fixed. So they've got great shelter, but they're just reproducing
Right,
in
right.
each other, I mean, it's, so we've got people that are willing to spend money for that, but not willing to catch them and fix them, and, you know. But we've got, I'm willing to do the footwork.
Okay, Mr. Davis has another.
Another question, has anybody done any research on how long after the spade and neutering gets done that you'll start to see a decline in the population?
Oh, well, I have not done any research on it. I know if you take a colony of 13 cats and you get them fixed, you won't see them reproducing. You're saving, I know in 1 year, my niece's cat, this was a few years ago, that was unfixed, had 4 litters in 1 year.
And how many are litter?
5. She averaged 5. So you would immediately see a decrease. Immediately.
One of the issues that I think that we're gonna hear in the downtown business area is catch and release. I mean, we understand what you're doing, but the
Right.
whole idea is the sanitation part of it. Catch and release back down in front of the restaurants or
Right.
town area.
Well, out where we live, there's plenty of wooded area. If, like I said, you know, same thing, some type of a shelter where, you know, I got no problem stopping feeding them, we've got no problem stopping feeding them. You know, to re-release them, like I said, you don't want to take all of them away because you'd be overrun with other problems.
Some of the ones that they had taken out of the mill and they spayed and were neutered, and there was a farmer that wanted them. So you might have a farmer, maybe we could
Absolutely.
advertise or something.
Absolutely. Or maybe we could find a farmer that's willing to take them and let them go on his land.
Right, they need it for rodents.
Absolutely.
But it's something that we can look at. I mean, we know we have this problem, and I think it's been, I think 2 months ago that there was a gentleman that brought this to our attention, and then we've been hearing more and more about it. And then
And
you
then
were-
It is a big problem, and it's a growing problem, and it seems to be, there's a frustration, I think, with
Yeah.
a number of people
Well,
to have
another
something done.
issue that was brought to my attention is the fact that, I don't want to throw out names of institutions or anything, but the Humane Society in particular, anyways, I don't want to say that, but they're letting animals go without being spayed or neutered, leaving it up to the new owners to have that done, giving them a voucher to have it done cheaper, et cetera, but then not doing any kind of follow-up to seeing if it was done. Where I'm new to the area, 5 years I've been up here now. I came from Daytona Beach, Florida, and our Humane Society, no
I bet you wish you were
animal.
back
I'm sorry.
I bet you wish you were back.
Right. Yeah. No animal left that shelter to a new home without being fixed first. And that is an issue too. I mean, but
Sure.
I've never heard of the Humane Society letting an animal go or any type of adoptable, you know, without having the animal fixed first. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, Greg, Mr. Metcalf?
Just a comment, I know what you're talking about, getting some of these cats away from downtown, but I agree with her in the sense of we could have a problem with the businesses if we still don't have some bit of a community down here. I didn't know with ear tipping, is that something that?
Absolutely, the
So
new
we-
horizon that we took them to,
Okay.
ear tipped them.
Okay,
The first place that we weren't happy with gave them a tattoo, that we don't like that, the ear tipping, yes.
tipping, all right, so that way they're
Yes, you
recognized
know.
as they're part of the federal community. So
Absolutely.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, they cut the tip of their ear, and it's very noticeable that it's done, so when you see one, you know it's fixed.
Okay. I don't know, I would like to get your number. Bert, you are our new employee, right?
Of course, sir.
Okay, so we have Bert's number, so that's convenient also. Okay, I would need your number and Bert's number, and then we can try and get something set up. Would that be good?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, we'd have our own, probably our own meeting.
This
Yeah.
could be a meeting of its own. 'cause we-
Absolutely, absolutely. Phone available 24/7 as of right now.
Okay,
And
we'll
you
try to
know
set
where you
something
can
up.
find me.
Okay,
Again, I think if there's ways we can partner with folks
Right,
like this
yes.
to facilitate.
if they're willing to help us.
Absolutely.
And do the hard work, the dirty work, the leg work, trapping, transporting.
We're willing to do it,
Okay.
and thank you very, very, very much for getting
For
to us
hearing us.
and talking about it and helping. Like I said, we're willing to help and come up with, like I said, I understand we don't want all these cats re-released into that area. But then again, cats are cats and they're gonna probably go back to that area regardless of where you release them. Because they're, they're used to being in that area, they're gonna go back to that area.
Just whenever you facilitate the meeting, if you could
I'll
also
keep you-
notify my office so I can notify my sister-in-law, Denise Mucci, so I can cut down on all the phone calls that she's to me.
We also had Jefferson County Animal Welfare League has helped us tremendously and offered volunteered their help.
Okay, yeah, we'll get something put together. We'll have you and Bert.
Absolutely, one of our rooms.
Okay.
I think Chief handed out something that I think Chief is pretty consistent with what these ladies are looking at.
I looked, and a lot of cities have this problem, and this is what most of them do.
Yeah.
My only question was tonight when I handed this out, is just to find somebody willing to do it. And
Dolls.
they're here. As far as traps, what were are they like Ramel's trap? So,
There's
No,
metal,
they're-
like a box?
and
Yeah,
then you set it up
metal.
and they have the little platform and they step on it and it closes.
He's got traps,
Oh,
Raw milk?
yeah. And most of the time, I mean, in the summer, they get used to
yeah.
ground
Track
hogs.
goods and ground hogs.
I'm
Okay.
sure we have some.
Yeah,
All
same
right.
type of trap, just as long as it's not a kill trap.
Oh, no. We're not gonna do that. No.
No kill, no.
No, that's why I had you, that's why I asked you to come, you and Bert to come down. I don't wanna kill them.
No.
Right.
I'm not even a deer hunter or anything. I don't know how people do that, so.
And if you notice in cities, I mean, like I said, I've been around up and down the East Coast, and every city, every town has this problem. Well, I was gonna make a snide comment, but I'll keep that out.
Well,
Chinese restaurants,
we
you never
spay or
see
neuter.
any-
Yeah. I didn't wanna bring it up either.
But
But,
anyway,
yeah, we'll set something up and, I'll get in touch, I'll get your numbers after. Okay?
Awesome,
All right, thank you,
Very
ladies.
much.
Thank you,
Yes,
thank you, Bert.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boland. Okay, you want to go back to the schedule that you have, your agenda that you have set up?
I'd be happy to. Item number 2 is Police Department Court Facility Project Review. This, as I believe the council is aware, is the feasibility study that we are undertaking to look at our options regarding the future facility for our police department, court, and fire department as well. The options we were looking at, if you recall, were the renovation of the existing court and police facility, or relocating to the Justice Center, and then the option of a new facility that would potentially house the police department, court facility, and fire department. Chris Petrozzi is our project manager on this project, and Chris, maybe you can take it from there and fill us in a little bit on what this project is, right?
Sure. We had our first meeting with our design build team, who is Ray Rahman and Grant Setter Carroll, city manager, police chief, fire chief, building inspector, the city engineer, and myself. Met with Representative of Grapevine, Grant Setter Carroll, and looked at 6 preliminary concepts that they had come up with. And their preliminary evaluation, again, is still at the very preliminary stages. This is our first meeting of it, and to look at the concepts. And so we did look at 6 concepts. Out of those concepts, 3 were developed that their Branch Center Carroll will be looking at and closer detail. One was rehab the existing municipal building for the police station and municipal court with an addition to the existing building. The second concept was to look at the existing space in the Justice Center. And this would be the the space on the north half of the building. Space. And then the third concept was to rehab the existing building for court functions, as well as build a new police and fire station just on the property the city owns south of this. So those are the three concepts based on our discussion with the design build team that they will be looking at further. We have a tentative meeting set up for the end of March where we will go into greater detail on those concepts. So that's basically where we are with our design build team.
I don't know if there's any questions for Chris or me.
I have one. If we were to build a new fire station downtown, would that be relieving some of the problems that we have now, Chief? I mean, getting up and down the hill, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to close West Heights. Coming down the hill is a lot easier than getting up the hill. If we were going to build a new one, would there be anywhere at the top of the hill that we may look instead of on our own property?
Well, to build one big enough to replace those two, you're kind of limited on space at the top or the bottom of the hill. My only question is, if you're talking about revitalizing downtown, you know, businesses coming in and out, and you're going to take the fire station out of downtown.
Good point.
It's not that bad getting up and down the hill. It would be nice to be closer to the bottom of the hill, but take what you can get. But no, I really don't think there's any space big enough. Right, it would have to be right at the top of Washington Street, because then you could. Because if you move up there, what happens when you have to service Lincoln Heights? Now you got to come down the hill and go all the way over and up. So there's a time issue there. At the bottom of the hill, you would be close enough to both hilltops and downtown to still have the same response times. But the goal is to build something big enough to replace both of those. So.
Yeah, I think, as Chris mentioned, we're in the preliminary stages. However, I think some of those points were brought up, Kenny, and then also just the acquisition costs are, it's obviously a challenging consideration to look at. But we do want to take the time that's needed, do this in a very methodical way, get the project done, but make certain we look at each of those options and do a thorough job of doing that. We're still, Chairman Paul, we're still on track with this project to come to the committee, Chris, maybe April? Or is that pushing it?
Perhaps.
We'll have much more to say in
More to say in April, yes.
Right. And I think it'll really have a lot of details at that point, and we certainly want to get back to the commissioners on their offer. We've had good communications back and forth. We have, I think, all the information that we need now from them, and so I anticipate this project coming to a conclusion sometime. I'd like to think April, but April, May, early in the second quarter, I would say.
Okay. Any other questions on that? On topic 2? All right, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Number 3. This is the emergency preparedness plan. This was something that Carlo talked about earlier, the chief, fire chief. This is, go ahead, Mr. Buller.
Yes, Councilman Paul I've asked Chief Capaldi and our health commissioner, Shalita Smith, to be the project managers for this project. Carlo, Shalita, can you give a
Sure.
1-2 punch on this one?
Okay. Our committee that we put together to redo and update the emergency response plan, we've met, we've selected a consultant that's going to help us complete this project. I was in contact with him yesterday. He's going to send me some dates so we can schedule our kickoff meeting, and that project's going to be underway here soon, probably by the end of March.
What's his name again?
JH Consulting. They were recommended by our state EMA, so they came recommended. Also, they said they should have no problem with a 3 to 4 month time frame with that. So by the end of the second quarter, start of the third quarter, we should have something in writing. So, and along with that, Councilman Metcalf mentioned, he brought up the generator issue. So we also put together some people that have been, we've been talking about that issue, but it came up originally because the health department has a cooler full of vaccines.
Right.
And if the power goes out and those coolers don't get powered quick enough, there's a cost involved if we lose those vaccines. So we've been studying that part of it, quite frankly, because that's the least expensive option. Because in the past, the nurse had just left Sandy, was running down here and plugging a portable generator up outside, a gasoline generator, and running a cord down the hallway. So we decided we'd look at that first and see what the cost of that would be. And Bob Baird and Mike Dolak were looking into that. Just that part of it is in the $15,000 to $16,000 range. Well then, when Greg brought up that question, originally when they built the city building, there was a generator thrown out there for the Puglisi room, which is supposed to be the command center if we need it, and any other vital areas in the building. So we expanded our scope to look into the different areas of the building that we might want to power. Mike Dolak gave me the second sheet. It's a schematic of the building. Basically what we would be looking at is the dispatch room in the police station. Top left corner is the communications room in the back where all the phone lines come out of. Front left would be the room in the health department that powers the vaccine coolers. Middle, top right corner, towards the middle is the Puglisi room, which would be where any center would be. And then top right corner of the building would be the IT room where all the computer equipment comes out of. Those were the areas that Mr. Dolak suggested that we should power, and it sounded like a reasonable option from our committee. This is just a basic study so far, and most of these numbers were provided by Mr. Dolak. He believes that the approximate cost of the total project would be anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000. Just to do the vaccine room in the health department is right around $16,000. And basically our committee worked up, this is just a basic initial outline, and then once we get some further direction, we'll go into more detail. So this is just an overview, and that's basically what you're looking at. And that's roughly what it was when they designed and built this building. And he said that it came in late in the project, and at the time the city manager said, no, that's too much, we don't want to put that in there. So basically that's what you're looking at. I will say this, if it's a county-wide emergency, most likely we're going to be in the command center out of the 911 center. If it's a city emergency and we need a command center with power, Jefferson County has a mobile command center that we can park right out front. So, and plus the other thing is, we don't know where dispatch is going to be. So we want to let that project come to fruition before we know exactly where we have to power that at. So this is just an initial cost estimate by the engineer and just the scope of the project. So.
I agree with the whole idea of having the generator. I do think it is very important. But one of the things that I did ask Mike about was if we would go ahead and try to get something to power the vaccines and then possibly later go back and do something to power the rest of the building. We think that would be more costly for the city. So I don't know, it might be in our best interest to see what's going to happen with dispatch in the police department before we decide what we're going to do with the generator. Because like Carlos said, if we do need the command center, the county is willing to give us theirs, if it is just city, so.
Yeah, I think council, it's a project with a lot of different layers and a lot of different issues. At the end of the day, our most important responsibility is keeping the citizens safe. And so I think it's very appropriate that the preparedness plan and the planning for the new generator, whether that's phases or how we put that together, should go parallel and together. And at this point, we don't have the generator in our capital improvements plan, so we're going to need to look at that as well. But I'm hopeful that, and as Carlos said, I think the chief indicated we would be done with this project probably around the end of the second quarter, so end of June at this point. So we will have a plan in place to address this in different phases, however we need to do it. But again, we want to have a sound plan in place for any type of emergency. We certainly hope we never have to use it, but if we do, we don't want to be thinking what we're doing and how we're doing it. We just need to be doing it. So that's what's driving us, and we'll continue to report to the committee and hopefully have a plan for consideration at the end of June.
Thank you.
I'd like to answer any questions.
Any other questions on this subject?
I got a question. Little questions tonight. Between now and June, do we have a plan? Not the physical, but the plan.
Until we address the issue with the power for her vaccine coolers, the portable generator's still there. It works. It's not ideal, but it can be used until then. I've always operated under the assumption that if I need power and I need a command center, I can call Jefferson County 911. They'll bring the mobile command center down. If anyone was at the Cregan fire, they brought it down there. It has a radio station in it. It has bathrooms. It has a galley. It has communications. It has a heat, so they can set that up anywhere. So until then, I'd use that.
But when I ask about a plan, I'm talking physical, building, structure, that type of thing. I mean a plan.
You mean the written plan?
Yes.
Well, we have the current one.
Current.
We're updating it. And, so we operate under that, but it's dated. So we have plans in place, but it needs dated and it needs to mesh more with current standards.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Item number 4, broke the windows policy and community policing.
Thank you, Councilman Paul. I'd like to start off, if I could, with Chief McCaffrey. Maybe Chief, if you could address our citywide crime statistics, and maybe just if you could jump into the downtown traffic enforcement as well.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
The same as we did last year, only we kept 2013, so you have 3 years for comparison. Calls for service, we have 275 more calls for service than we did in 14. No reported murders. Rape, we have 1 reported rape year to date. Burglaries are the same at 10. Robberies are at 6. Last year they were 14, so that's 8 less. Thefts are up 3 from 2014. Thefts from autos are down 6. Stolen vehicles are up 2. Shots fired calls, that's just anybody calls in shots fired. It's +1 from last year. The actual shots fired are -1. That's when we actually find evidence of any shots fired. There was 3 so far this year, and they've all been in the downtown area, in the Upper Market Street, and 2 down there. One of them, we arrested 2 juveniles out of, so I think the actual last shots fired call on the Hilltops was December 27th. So we still have the extra patrolman, patrol officer out. So the weather helps also, but as you can see, our calls for service are up, so people are still out. And no reported arsons. And the downtown parking enforcement so far this year, 127 tickets. Any questions?
It's like a kind of a variety of different statistics, hard to read, or at least I can't
Well, I mean, they're all.
see a pattern. What you,
No, I mean, they're all close. I mean, it looks different on the graph, but when you have 8 compared to 9, that's why the graph's so much different. There's only,
Yeah.
one difference. The calls for service, I don't know. Yeah, it's, compared to last year, it's relatively the same.
Any questions? Chief?
The one thing I want to add about going back to the cats, I know the feral cats are a problem, but there's also, if you have a neighbor that's letting their cat out, and you know the cat belongs to the neighbor, please call down, and we'll send Romel to tell the neighbor to keep their cat in, because I know where I used to live, the cats weren't feral, they belonged to somebody, and they would always come in my yard. So I'm just saying on the hilltops, you might have a mixture of both, because some people do let their cats run, and they go in other people's yards, so I just wanted to add that to the cats.
Thanks, Chief. The next item is the Hilltop Neighborhood Strategic Safety Plan. Chris, I think you need to add an updated copy of that. Can you update us on your?
I'll update what I can, and maybe Bill can add to it. With regard to the infrastructure, and I'll combine infrastructure with urban design because they're both related. The fire department has the maps, streetlights that I was using, but were provided by AEP, and again, as soon as weather permits, they will go out and do an inventory of the streetlights that are not working and report those to AEP. I think all of the weather has been holding that part of the project up. Regarding completion of the lighting and looking at our right-of-ways, we will be contracting with CT consultants to do a residential streetscape study, right-of-way plan for the Lake Bellevue and Pleasant Heights neighborhoods. This is a similar study to the one that will be undertaken in the central business district, although if you want to look at perhaps as many amenities and as many things that are typically found in the central business district. And that project is funded by available community development block grant funds. With regard to demolitions, we have contracted with RSV Inc. for the demolition of 700 Pine Street. That is a fire damaged property. And we'll be proceeding with the demolition of additional properties. I believe that in the sunshine next week, a group of properties that includes 509, 511, 515, 615 Railroad Avenue, 603 Garrett, 622 Pine, and 1247 Lincoln. And those are all properties that have been damaged by fire. In addition, that one at 700 Pine is also a fire damaged property. In addition to those 511, 513, 513 Greer Center, 606 Brady, 831, 833 Sherman, 242 South 8th, and 220, 230 Adams Street, which is right down the street here, are also proposed for demolition. So we'll be looking at those properties, and then once council adopts the ordinance authorizing us to secure asbestos abatement assessment services, we'll begin to look at more properties.
Bill?
We have one opening. We have a test scheduled, I believe it's March 21st. Carla, the physical agility is going to be done the same day?
Yes, I believe it's going to be April 11th, or I think the practice is the 11th, the 18th is the original agility test.
So they're going to be done together with police and fire, physical agility. Continuing with the, as I mentioned, the increased presence of an officer on the hilltops. The crime tip hotline signs are up. I got another tip today. The tips go to me, JMHA, and the task force. Via email. Outreach to school district. I think all the officers have gone through Steubenville City Schools to get familiar with them. Continuing enforcement of curfews. Continue to work with the Sheriff's Department, Deputy Lemantis in Steubenville. Special thanks to the Sheriff because he does a good job. We'll work with the State Highway Patrol when the weather gets better. K-9 unit, you see I attached, Rob gave me a summary sheet for February. What the dog's been doing. As far as the sniffs, Rob told me most of the time, as soon as they find out he has a dog, they give him verbal permission to search the car without the dog having to sniff. So just the dog being there moves that process along. Seizures 10, heroin 1, marijuana 3, prescription medications 3, paraphernalia 2, and almost, well, $1,918 in currency. He's also taking the dog to elementary schools and churches, for public relations.
What's the Terry stop?
Terry stop is when officer thinks, has reasonable suspicion to believe that there's a crime being committed or has been committed. You stop and check the person out.
Okay. And courtesy, is that going to come back? Do I go send that back to Bono?
Depends on the court,
Okay.
what the courts do with that.
Chief, the Roethlisberger grant,
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry, I passed that over.
you can update us.
Awarded $10,000 from the Roethlisberger grant. The Byron Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, we're awaiting that announcement for when we can apply to that. And you want me to go in the Fox grant now?
Before you do that, I really have a question for the chief, if you don't mind. With Bono, is he fitted with a bulletproof vest?
Okay, the trainer that we purchased it from doesn't recommend the vest because that's something that when the dog comes after you, it's something that you can grab a hold of to use against the dog. It's just, a chance you take or, what's most likely to happen. But I asked that too about the vest, and Rob said they really don't recommend it because I don't have my phone, but we practice with the dog all the time. I went over in the building Friday, and the dog came after me. I got a nice bump on my wrist. But when the dog attacks you, you know, it grabs your arm. The dog has something on it. If you're going to fight back against the dog, it would be easier to grab the vest.
Kind of flip up.
Correct. Want to go to the Hops grant?
If you could, that'd be great.
I handed these out last time, I didn't.
You don't? You don't?
No, I'm good. That's basically from last year. The cities in Ohio that got the awards, how many they got. And the basic outline is May or June they announce it. You have to apply for it. They grant the award in August or September. Would cost the city $9,000 over 3 years for 2 officers, and the city would be required to retain the officers for 1 additional year. The problem with this is, I talked to finance, if we don't have the money to apply for the grant without a safety levy being passed. Because in that 3rd year, you have to tell the federal government, yes, we have the money to pay for these officers. And at this time, we don't. So that's basically where I'm at.
And Chief, this is really the only source we have of funding additional.
Yeah, this is the
additional officers.
only grant that's out there is the COPS grant. And that's even if they have it this year. I mean, I don't know any reason why they wouldn't. But I was just looking compared to when we got ours several years ago compared to how many was given out last year. There's a big drop in the number because there's not as much funding as there was 7 or 8 years ago, as in everything.
I have one question. The cost of the city would be $90,000 over a 3-year period, so it would be $30,000 a year. Would that, or do they want all 90 at one time? They want the 90, or can you
No,
break it up into 3?
They pay you the money,
Okay.
but you have to cover the difference in the salary each year. So it's not 90 up front. You just have to make up the difference in the officer's salary for those first years. But I think where the problem is the last year, where you have to retain the officers. Yeah.
1 additional year, so.
And that means we have 38 officers. If you have 2 more, you have to keep it at 40. You know, even if somebody retired, they couldn't replace. You know what I mean? You have to keep the staffing at 40.
Mr. Johnson, I have a question for you. Chief.
Well, I have more of a comment. So we have the 30,000 for the first 3 years. This is the 4th year, right?
I believe the 4th year is the problem.
So in the 4th year, I mean, we're going to solve the problem 1 of 2 ways. We're either going to pass a safety levy, or we're going to reorganize and free up money. So I believe in the 4th year, you'll have the money one way or the other. If it's not a safety levy, the city's got to address, if the safety levy fails, if the council decides to put a safety levy on and it fails, then council has to relook at everything. And I believe the council could come up with the money for the 4th year, and should come up with the money for the 4th year.
We have a new finance director, maybe. I mean, we have time because it won't be announced till May or June. But you have to be able to tell the federal government, yes, we have the money that last year.
We'll have the money, it's just where we're taking it from.
Right, well, I need the city manager or the finance director to tell me so I can put my name on it.
It's just it's a commitment that we need to be able to make before, our intention, and I don't think there's any secret, our intention was to try to apply for it this year, because we need more officers. That's, I think we all agree on that. But if we are not certain we'll have funding for it, one certain way of having funding for it, and a direct way of having funding for it, is the safety levy or wage tax. I mean, then we could fund this. Our problem comes, I think, if the wage tax would fail, or we didn't go forward with something in November, then I think we're really, we're spreading really thin at that point. So.
As Mr. Johnson said, though, we can come up, and we have the money in the safety fund. I mean, I don't want to use that until last resort, but and that is for the safety of not only our officers and our citizens, our employees, but also, I feel also for citizens of Steubenville. So, I mean, if we need to, we have that as a backup. So I would.
Yes.
Well, Willie raises a great point. I mean, there's $700,000 in that safety fund, which we're spending at an alarming rate. However, why can't we just say we reserve $150,000, which we will not touch, and it is our backup to pay that fourth year. So therefore, there will be money in that fourth year because we will not touch below that $150,000.
Almost like a reserve police fund.
I mean, we have a $12 million budget, and if we can't prioritize our spending to hire 2 additional police officers, we got problems.
I think the chief came up with an excellent idea, and I think our new finance director, again, our intention was to apply this round. We need to bring that to you because we need legislation to come out of council, do we not?
Yes.
To apply.
Yes.
So, but we are, this is the type of input we needed, and we will go ask our new finance director.
That's why we brought it up, because that's what I hope somebody would tell me. Yes, we'll
And-
find money somehow.
Sure, and that's the direction. I suppose we haven't hired new police officers in a number of years, so point well taken, Mike, but we haven't found money in previous years, so I like to think we can, take up challenges and get them resolved, but our track record isn't very good. I think we haven't found the money in the last several years. Perhaps we'll be able to do it this year. But I think, again, the safety levy is certainly a way of sustaining this and building from that. I don't think 2 new officers is really, we're not optimal at that point, are we? That's not, we're at a perfect level of staffing if we add 2 officers. Is that accurate or not?
Oh, we always want more police.
I'll try to rephrase that.
I mean, 2 more officers would be, you
It
see
would
how
help
much,
a great
you see how much of a difference just the actual officer
Yeah.
on Hilltop does.
Mr. Metcalf has a question.
Comments, and you kind of answered part of it, or mentioned part of it, but the idea is with the safety wage tax, if we put that on, ultimately it's not always trying to figure out, put our eggs before we're hatched, so to speak, or, so if that would fail, then we need that fail-safe plan.
Sure.
He brought one option up, first fail-safe plan. That's something we need to turn this in May, is that correct?
May or June, it depends
May or
on
June.
the announcement.
So, as Jeannie gets situated, and as we look at the budget projections, which are moving targets, I think when we get to April's Finance Committee meeting, that would be a bullet item that we would have on there, Willie, that we could discuss, on there as jointly. Because, Tim, I think we all have been in agreement of trying to do what we can for the cops. Greg, we've talked about that for months.
Yeah.
But we understand about the fourth year, but, I think, we need to have that looked at through the projections, but that's not put aside what we need to do for the safety of our citizens.
Anything else, anybody? Anybody have anything? Hang on.
I have a question for the chief, but it's not related to this, it's related to another item.
Okay.
So go ahead.
You want to do- Okay.
Chief, did you get a chance to check with Dayton on the
Yes, I
new
did.
abatement? Do you think it's a good program for
I
us?
actually talked to the detective, and she's going to send me, she was supposed to send me last Friday. I talked to her. They have one detective that's assigned to the whole program. She said she was busy that day and would get the stuff to me as soon as she could. So I'll give her a call tomorrow, but I did talk to her.
Okay.
And now, like I said, they have one detective. That's all she does.
This is the Dayton nuisance,
Abatement.
I think, abatement program.
Yeah, she said she would send checklists and everything that they have.
Just to fill the rest of the council in, Dayton, Ohio has a program to help fight drugs, and it's called the Nuisance Abatement Program. If you go on the Dayton, Ohio website, you can find it. The chief and the city manager took the information, and the chief was going to check with Dayton to see if it was viable and something worthwhile for us to consider. So,
She said the main thing about it is they have to find felony drugs in the building. But that's, I called her at a bad time. I called her first thing in the morning thinking that would be a good time on Friday.
That's-
She was headed out, but I could talk to her. Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, Mr. Bowen.
Moving on, I wanted to, and very pleased to update council on the Hilltop Neighborhood Community Task Force. This, I think, as you'll recall, is an item that I felt personally was very important for our community policing efforts. Everywhere that I've been familiar with these types of initiatives, there's always been a strong community task force, members of the community that their input and the work that they do, working together, certainly can generate tremendous initiatives, new ideas, and I think brings a sense of unity to our efforts. And we did have our first meeting last month, and that involves, a task force involves members of the Hilltop organization, the Citizens Group, the university, our Steubenville City School District, city, myself, chief, and Councilman Johnson joined us as well. But it's certainly, I felt, was a very good meeting. I think we agreed that there's a need to expand that group. And I certainly think that our faith-based organizations and the faith-based community needs to have a strong part of, a strong seat at that table. Certainly, our department heads, the Parks and Recreation, Police Department, M&R, just because of the sanitation aspect is also important. So I felt that there was some real good momentum that was created. We want to continue to have those discussions, and I think that the best thing this group brings is, again, it's not a city-generated group. It is a partnership. It is different groups that have a stake in the success and the health and the quality of life of our neighborhoods. So I'm very pleased to say that this group is now up and running. And I would also mention in some discussions that we had, I would anticipate that representatives from the Landlord Association would be there. I mean, I think if you look at the Hilltop neighborhoods, it's just a fact, and it's just an is. 70% of our housing units in the Hilltop neighborhoods are rental units. So, to not have a place at the table for our landlords, I think we'd be missing something. So, again, I'm very pleased that this group is up and running. I will certainly share the minutes of their meetings when they approve those with council, and I'm hopeful that our task force will be as successful as other task force in other communities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bull? Thank you for that information.
Again, and I would just say, one thing that did come out of those meetings that was stressed was, I think everyone felt that there was a lot of different groups working towards a goal, but they're not unified. And that, I think, was an important...
Close the loop. Bring it all together.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to be working on. But thank you for letting me add that.
Well,
Mr. Paul.
thank you for your time.
The Gateway in Central Business District property maintenance inspections, Chris and Sean, and then maybe Sean, if you can pick up on the proactive neighborhood cleanup program, I think I'll skip that. I'd be happy to hear from you.
Sure. Chris's office graciously continues to put out these facts. Look at page 14 on the, what he's gone, PNC, proactive neighborhoods, continue to do that. You'll notice on there as well, there's a lot of, under action columns, it mentions a lot of the properties that are being demoed and stuff, so you can see some of the actions being taken. We're continuing that area, obviously the weather, a little bit, dampers it a little bit, but we'll be, things are warming up, we'll be back to more and more in the hilltop areas, we'll see some more. We've had some great alley cleanup stuff, so I want to thank Bob Barrett, especially his crew. Did a number of really great things in our alleys. They're continuing to keep an eye on some of that. So if we exhaust our efforts, then I'm able to contact them. We've been able to get a lot of that rubbish out of there. Then the thing we've tried to do this week, Chris is, guys are really doing more on the property maintenance in the downtown area. But we've been identifying at least once a week, we're trying to take our efforts and go right to the downtown business district area, do some cleanups. Identified at least 4 areas of litter that needed some bulk trash pickups that needed to be in there. Unfortunately, we were able to determine who had put it there, but we were able to get it cleaned up with the community service or again, Chris's proved really helpful. One was the last one, which is number 240. It said it's pending. That's actually cleaned up now. That was area by the old Gerards. The landlord there had just emptied that out and had acquired a dumpster rig and stuff, so that's actually completed now. And then we're just looking at other efforts we can do to, when the spring comes, how we can keep the areas that are, if you enter the city, and how we can just clean up, keep things up with sun. That's basically about it. It's continuing on, and we just keep plugging away. Looking at ways we can tag team and work together.
Any questions for Officer Scott?
Sean, I have one. Down, Virginia Avenue to Patrick, we call it Patrick.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
Those belts down there, well, whose property? Did you notice those belts down there? There's some large belts. They're like industrial.
Yes, that property actually belongs to C.A. Frosty. Mr. Frosty's bought that entire area out there. Some of those actually areas, some of the city streets are actually vacated at some point. I think what he did a number of years ago, put a large amount of rubber belts or something to try to keep weeds and stuff down. So I don't know what's surfaced up there. Well, we can check it tomorrow.
The belting you use on like coach landscaping.
Yeah, it was
Got big coals like.
Yeah,
But it's not rolled, it's piled up, it's just all over the place.
I'll make a trip down there tomorrow to see what else.
It's been there for
It's been there for a little bit, yeah. He put some stuff down in the past. And I think it's served its purpose.
Sounds like it. Anything else for Officer Scott?
And Chris, the gateways in Central Business.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think it's, just John mentioned, the last page of the report contains the Central Business District inspections. And in fact, actually, we've been, since we prepared that report, maybe a week ago, there's been even more activity with regard to inspections in Central Business District. We'll see on the next report. With regard to the entrances to the city, north and south of State Route 7, Lover's Lane, and the connector roads, we continue to check those weekly. And as we see issues at those entrances, we'll either take action through our office if that's the appropriate course of action, or notify others of the issues.
I got a question for Chris. I was going to ask you the last thing. On South Street, 3rd Street, that gas station, are we going to do anything with that? We have, from what I'm hearing now, we have the possibility of somebody going to do something major in that area. That's pretty, we're going to talk about an eyesore.
Yes, we did take action against the owner several years ago when the canopy began to collapse. And as a result, he did demolish the canopy and the building that was, the small building that was there. Since then, the rest of the site has become an eyesore, and we did report that to the state agency. I believe it's called, Carlo, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Buster, is the name of the state agency that handles that. And that is on their list of properties to clean up. However, statewide, the list is so long that, and the property is abandoned now. The property has since been abandoned. And so, we're basically waiting, at this point, waiting for the.
Because those tanks are still in the ground.
The tanks are still there. Yes, the tanks are still there.
How long ago did we contact them? Just, I mean, it's been a
Oh,
while.
it's probably 3 years ago.
Can we revisit that, Gary?
We can obviously call them again, but as Chris said though,
It's statewide, there's so many of these, like these small abandoned gas stations, that it's a problem statewide.
How about the one on the other end, on Route 7 at University Boulevard? I know the state's going to put that new road through there and all that.
there's tanks
in there also?
Yes.
Wow.
But what that guy did was he put heating oil down in the tanks and he kept his permits running. Now thank God he has since left town and I haven't seen him in 5 or 6 years, but we'll talk about it. Exactly. So
he was really never a resident or.
yeah, you're right there. But I'm certain that's going to be taken care of because those ramps are going to run out right over that property. So
That one is, but this again.
Yes, the state is aware of that, and
Right.
they do the improvement project over the years.
That's at that end, but the one on 3rd Street, we're still going to have issues with
Yeah.
for a while.
One quick note I would add is I have asked Officer Scott and Director Baird and our Parks and Rec Director, Mary Beth Sills, to work as a subgroup to put together our thoughts on spraying of weeds. And we just haven't had a very robust system in our city, and there certainly are pitfalls to it, and there's some expenses, but I do see some value, some liability issues that we need to make certain we don't run afoul of. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more effective to spray something and then be done with it than to have to go back over and over and keep responding to complaints. So I just wanted to let council know that we are working on that and trying to find a way to make that safe. And again, liability, we're going to have to make certain we cover that. But I do see some benefits. There are some training classes that are booked in, one later this month, and it seems like every month there's one. So I think that's not a problem. Employees, who we're going to assign to do that, things like that. So just all the operational aspects, but I'm hopeful that we'll come to a conclusion here shortly. I know there's a lot of ice and snow out there, but a month from now we might even be talking about weeds. Maybe a month and a half.
They're being watered right now.
So, and it seems like, in every community, not just ours, that the weather turns and things start growing faster than the good things grow, but bad things grow as well.
Right, and quickly.
We need to be ready, and we'll continue to update council on that as well.
Thank you. That's good, yes.
Sean, on a property that we typically have to go back to from May to the end of September.
Right.
How many times do we have to touch that property during the summer season?
We get at least once, every once in a while we'll try to get twice, but just, it's all based on manpower community service, but we probably most places average twice, you know.
At the start and at the end?
Usually start in the right. I know that, like those areas, like that old gas station, we're kind of always trying to get those areas when they're out about through the sidewalk. Because it's just,
Even if we get the house taken off.
it's just an eyesore, so we try to keep it down, but it's a mess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go on.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Paul, refuse collection, Director Barrett and myself, community cleanup, and I guess Officer Scott as well. Officer Scott, we're looking at the community cleanup being April 25th.
That's our hope. The Hilltop Group usually has their cleanup in April. We're trying to coordinate April 25th as a possible date. They're going to try to work with the university. It falls right around Earth Day, April 22nd, so kind of a nice pickup to say, let's try to get our little part of the earth a little nicer and stuff like that. And then also, Joey mentioned tire collection as well.
I know in terms of bulk pickup, we're looking at beginning, we're having at least the first one, Bob, I believe was that, what Saturday was that, April 18th?
Yeah, typically, historically, it usually starts in mid-April, and I think this year that puts it at, I believe it's the 18th, yes, Saturday, April the 18th, and it runs 6 weeks. So that's historically the time frame that's occurred every year.
Same way, the south side, the north side, same schedule as previous years?
Yeah, and of course, we would advertise that, and I would just say, some conversations that we've had, we may, depending on what other programs may be running similarly or simultaneously, we may move some areas around to coincide with maybe some of the other things that are desired to be done. If it helps.
Makes sense, yeah, makes sense.
If it either simplifies the overall process or avoids confusion or conflict with this.
That makes sense.
Essentially, yes, like.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think Officer Scott, tire collection, is that?
Excuse me, Mr. Bowman, if I could, Mr. Beard, when you're looking at that schedule, possibly changing or rearranging or coordinating with other activities, keep in mind, please, that we always try to leave the Layville area last, the latter part of May for the bulk pickup. Assisting university students are going home in the summertime on their couches, and things end up in our alleys, and also keep that time period in mind for that pickup on Monday.
Thank you.
Anything else?
JV Green team approached me. They assisted us over the last 2 years with the tire grant that we had, which is exhausted. We exhausted it last year, but they asked me if we would be willing to have one in our city. It would be no cost to the city at all. The date we have set up for that is Saturday, April the 11th. That'll be held at Lincoln and Wilson. Basically, I'll be working that day to help out with community service, people who can help do that. They'll provide basically all the resources we need. People just need to bring their tires there. I just want to emphasize, there'll be no satellite spots in the city. There'll be nothing on Lake Bell. There'll be nothing on Pleasant Heights to put tires before that, so you need to bring them there Saturday. We'll have more of that information in the paper. We want people to bring their tires to Lincoln and Wilson Saturday, April 11th. I believe it's going to run from 9 or 10 to 2. You just bring them there, we'll load them up, and then they go. That's the only day it's going to happen. Again, there's no expense to the city whatsoever. And we just ask you not to put tires anywhere else but there. That would be of great help.
So April is going to be a very busy.
Yeah, we are. Spring cleaning, get ready for our lovely summer day, I think.
It'll be a beautiful May, right? A couple just on bulk pickup. It's no secret, we talked a lot about it, and I've had certainly a desire to try to do multiple pickups this year. I do, in talking with Mr. Barrett, he informed informed me that the typical bulk pickup runs about $30,000 to $50,000. Is that correct, Bob? So that's that's the reality of doing multiple pickups. However, we are looking at a number of different options. Again, I know that in talking with the JB Green team and that process of their budget is moving forward. I know they have, and we've talked in the finance committee of that organization about additional roll-offs, and we may, our goal would be to have something more than just one bulk pickup in April. So those plans are still taking shape, but I think it's important that we pursue every opportunity out there, and I do think the Green Team has been at least very responsive to our suggestions. That their final budget is looking to be approved next Monday, so that will be some more information for us to use. Mr. Barrett and I talked about perhaps having some containers at our public work departments. I think that's another opportunity that we may be able to do. What we don't want to do is just put a roll-off out somewhere or a number of them in the community, because if they're not attended, Bob, then things get mingled. And that's the right way to say it. And things can't be mingled, because that adds to the cost of the operation. And you need things separated.
It does, and
Say it better than I just did.
I think you said it well. I think that, you never know what's going to happen. I think the potential exists, and the way the laws are and the way the landfills operate, certain things have to go to certain places. Municipal waste can go to a sanitary landfill, but construction debris cannot. It needs to go to a construction demolition landfill. Hazardous or other types of e-waste are not permitted in a landfill. Hazardous waste. So what you're referring to is, without control of that location, without control of that container, the potential for anyone to start to commingle non-permitted materials creates a situation where you may have a mess on your hands, where you have not only the bulk items that you're looking for, but you've also got hazardous waste, paints, petrochemicals, electronics, tires, construction, demolition material, not all of which do not go to the same place, and it would all have to be then sorted. And so I think control of the site is important.
I think wherever we come down on the Southwest or the solid waste plan, and however that shakes out, I do think that I'm hopeful that we can be the city, partner more with the Green Team and then with us. And I think the bottom line is just I see some potential for more impact and more value for our citizens. And we know we have litter and bulk trash issues. I think there are different options that we can approach this year and make a little bit more of a difference. Bob, street sweeping services.
Before we move on, if I could ask you a question, Mr. Lowen, the container, the roll-off that we're considering and possibly having at the Public Works building, I love the idea where they can have access to it and we can have control of what's going in there. More importantly, we will have control of who's using it also. I know we find out when we do our bulk pickup in the neighborhoods and all of a sudden in front of my house, there's mattresses and beds and paint cans and everything else that I didn't put out there, but somebody else did. And one time I even witnessed a West Virginia license plate truck unloading their bulk pickup. So in a controlled atmosphere, that's extremely important. And also be extremely important in the evening hours that the gates are locked so no one would have access to it.
Absolutely. Bob, street sweeping services, are those on schedule? I think our legislation passed or became effective February 20th.
They're on schedule as of the passage of our legislation and the timeframes that we've talked about before. The actual schedule will come into clear focus as we get closer. Repairs to our existing machine will take about 6 weeks. So we hope to have that machine back in our possession mid-April, mid to late April. So, target basically looking, late April, first the beginning of May. In the coming weeks, as I am in contact with that vendor and the time frame and the date of completion on those repairs becomes a little bit more clearer and more focused, I can come back to you with a more defined and accurate, date when that machine is going to be on the street. And we'll be able to put a schedule out for where that machine can be and when for that service. The additional machine, that's much further out. That's, as we discussed, is going to be anywhere from 6 to 9 months to manufacture on. So that's going to be the end of summer, early fall before we see that.
Thank you, Bob. Sanitation schedule, moving that from 5 days to 4 days. I mean, that's been an issue. Every time I think we're ready to move forward with that, it snows again. Bob needs all hands on deck. I think at this juncture, we need to get through the winter season. I'm sure that'll happen soon.
I hope you're ready.
And so I have decided that we really need to look at not the first part of April, but the end of April, early May, to make that change. And when we dial it back, when we do that, we need to notify our citizens so that they know when what impact that might have on their trash pickup. So there's a lot of things to do before we do it, and I just want to make certain we do it right. But my thought is we need to get through this season and then put it in your hands and move forward. Last thing I had for this evening, and I wanted to make certain we got to discuss impound lots, but the modernization plan, I think as was alluded to in our performance audit, the auditor states, I think that they looked at our current sanitation operations, felt that and they actually felt we could do some changes in staffing levels. I feel that we really can't undertake that until we have a more modern fleet and updated operations. So I know in talking to Bob, my thoughts are that we need a modernization plan for our equipment, our operations, our potential curbside recycling, however we want to approach this. But I think we definitely need to pursue that plan, and I don't think that's something that we can do in-house. So I will be bringing to council in the next coming weeks my ideas on sending out a request for proposal for firms to review our current sanitation system, how we can modernize it, what the costs would be, what our investment would be. My impression is that we're not where we should be with our system, and not having that modernization and those efficiencies, it costs us money. And eventually we have to invest in our system in order to make it run efficiently and reduce costs. So I certainly will be getting more information to council on that, Councilman Paul and the committee, and if if this ends up either stays in this committee or perhaps evolves towards service committee, I do want to pursue that and will welcome council's input and thoughts on that. Councilman Paul, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice agenda. We covered a lot of area today. Thank everybody for their participation also. I have one thing. I know it's 7:29. I will keep this. I handed out one to everybody. Mr. Bolin helped me. I have a proposal here that I think I would like everybody to take this home. Mr. Villamaggi just gave me an idea already, so take this home, read it. I think we can make, it could be like a moneymaker for us. And what Bob had brought up, I have we have 8 lots downtown. I would like to fence one of those lots in. We could impound the cars on that lot. But Mr. Villamaggi brought up that we also have property down by Water Street, don't we? Where it wouldn't be just an eyesore of the city, it would be maybe closer down. We also have the filtration plant that could also oversee it. And we could put a camera there that could help us, keep track of the cars we impound. And I think last year, we impounded 185 vehicles. So if you just take $100 times that 185, there was $1,500, or $18,500 we could have maybe made off this impound lot. I mean, something to look at. Take this home, please, look at it. If you got any ideas, let me know. If you don't like it, tell me that also. I don't care. But I think it's something that, right now, the tow truck company that tows our vehicle, then they tow it to their property, and then they have the impound fee. They get the $25 for as long as the car's there a day. So if the car's there for 10 days, there's $250. We could be making that right now. That's something I think we could look at.
And we certainly will review that, Councilman Paul. One interesting aspect I think that you bring up, or the article on Middletown. And Middletown is actually has been used as a model for a lot of, they were having a lot of problems 10 to 15 years ago. Not similar to many communities. And they made a lot of different initiatives, and so I'm looking forward to looking at it and maybe contacting them about some of the things that they've done. And we certainly can keep this on the
Sure,
agenda.
yes, please. Yes, I'd like to do that next time, and maybe we'll get the ladies so they're going. I want to get their phone number. I hope okay. I know the one lady's back there kind of hot, so I figured she wanted to get out. Okay, with that, I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.